Welcome to another segment of the Word for Today. And the word for today is a word, leprosy. The Bible tells us in Leviticus chapter 13, verse 3 to 5, it says, "And the priest shall look on the plague in the skin of the flesh. And when the hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in sight be deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is a plague of leprosy, and the priest shall look on him and pronounce him unclean. Then the priest shall shut him that hath the plague 7 days. The priest would return, do another investigation at the end of those 7 days, and if he still sees signs, he would then administer another 7 days. In biblical days, when a person was diagnosed with leprosy, that person was placed in quarantine for at least 14 days. Leprosy was very contagious. Therefore, to prevent community spread, that person was isolated from others. Please note the frontline worker, the priest, kept in constant contact with the afflicted. Leviticus 13:45 tells us, "And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent, and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, and shall cry, Unclean, unclean." This may be viewed as harsh and cruel, but in order to prevent community spread, that person had to eliminate all contact with others. In fact, if that person was on the move for any reason and saw people, they were required to cry out unclean, as to warn people not to get too close. We live in the time of COVID-19, and many may prefer to remain anonymous for obvious reasons. For as a society, we have not matured enough to sympathize with others. Instead, we prefer to perpetuate rumor and stigma. In Jesus' time, the rules had become so overdone that people lacked compassion, and those in isolation felt completely cut off. This was never the intention. It was to be isolation, but not separation from compassion. We today crave knowledge for all the wrong reasons. All the wrong reasons. And by this, we have taken away one of our most effective weapons in the fight against a contagious virus. That is full disclosure. You see, if there was no discrimination or malicious intent, people would not be ashamed but would freely disclose their condition, which would then lead to compassion for them and their families, and also enhance community trace or contact tracing. You might ask, what would Jesus do? I can tell you what he did. I must first tell you that anyone who came in contact with a leper was also declared unclean. But I'm happy to declare that Jesus demonstrated the love and compassion of a frontline worker. Someone with leprosy was still a human being, and I declare today that someone with COVID-19 is still a human being. Matthew chapter 8 verse 3 tells us, "And Jesus put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will be thou clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed." What a powerful symbol. Jesus using his hands, a point of contact, a point where one can become contagious. But Jesus, the all-powerful one, put forth his hand and touched the man in compassion. I salute today all frontline workers for the tremendous job they are doing. While we often liken pastors and priests to Jesus, I tell you today that you, the frontline workers, are also performing a Jesus role. You are among those who are allowed to come into some level of contact with the infected persons for the purposes of healing. So I salute you. The rest of us are asked to come in contact in a different way. For we are asked to be compassionate, be supportive, be responsible, be Christ-like. Stay home. Stay safe. The word for today is leprosy.